Hi guys, Andy here, and today I am going to be doing my TBR Takedown 4.0 wrap-up video. So, the TBR Takedown 4.0 happened, and I had a TBR of 6 or 7 books, I think. And out of those 6 books, I read 3, started 1, and did not get to 3. And of the 5 challenges, I completed 3 of them, 1 for each book that I finished. So the first book that I read for TBR Takedown was the Best American Poetry from 2010. This took me a while to get through in certain respects and not as long to get through in other respects. It's the first book of poetry I've read in its entirety, I think, and it was very lovely, and there were poems that touched me and there were poems that didn't touch me, and as with any anthology that I have come into contact with in my life, it is just one of those hit-or-miss kinds of books. Next, I read The Two Towers, the second book in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. This was a lovely read in a lot of ways. It put some descriptions to things that I'd seen in the movies that I hadn't understood fully, and things that I didn't really get at the time. J.R.R. Tolkien's writing, for me, is something that is really easy to fall into, and it was really engaging, and it was the kind of book that I could just fall into. It was work to read, it was a challenge at times, but at the same time it was amazing, and something that I wanted to keep coming back to. It wasn't easy to put it down, but it also wasn't easy to continue reading, which is a weird place to sit, I think. It's a weird place for a book to sit, but yeah, it was lovely, and I cannot wait to get to the last book in this series and to be able to say I've read the Lord of the Rings trilogy, finally. It has taken me so long. The next book I finished is Splintered by A.G. Howard. This book is an Alice in Wonderland based story, and this book was rather interesting for me in that I didn't find any of the characters particularly likable for the most part. Like, the description and the imagery was wonderful in a lot of ways, and I really loved that about this book, and I loved the adventure of it. But I really couldn't make myself connect with any of the characters that were in this book, particularly any of the male characters. There are basically 3 main characters: our Alyssa, Alice character, a character called Jeb, who's a human, mortal person who's grown up with our main character, and a magical character, a Wonderland character who is also a guy, and there's a little bit of a love triangle set up with them, a little bit, and I just felt the whole time that the male characters and the way they related to the female character were uncomfortable and a little sexist. It felt a little sexist to me, especially the way that Jeb relates to our main character. Yeah, I just couldn't connect with anybody, and there's a part of me that wants to read what's going to happen next in the next couple of books, but there's also a part of me that's done with this series, so I don't know if I will pick up the rest. I don't know. I really don't. Okay, those were the 3 books that I actually finished. The next book, which I started and am still in the middle of, is Hell and Back: Reflections on Writers and Writing from Dante to Rushdie by Tim Parks. This is a book of essays. This was the book that I am uncomfortable picking up. I found as I continued reading the essays that it was easier for me to get through this book, that it was easier for me to pick up on this writer's style and the way that he talks about things, and it was easier for me to engage with these essays about authors that I've never read. But this book is still a challenge for me to get through, I think, which is why it's taking me longer than I expected. And then finally, I did not get to 3 of the books that were on my list. I also think I left one of these books out of my TBR video by accident. Also, I'm in the middle of 2 of these already. I've been in the process of reading them for a while, and I thought I would just take this time to actually finish them, but I didn't get to them over this past week. And those books are Riverwind the Plainsman, the Dragonlance book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou, and Brilliance of the Moon by Leon Hearn. So yes, those were the books that I read, the books that I started, and the books that I didn't get to last week. I think over the course of the week, I started off really strong, and then I fell off in the middle, due to certain life things coming in and getting in the way of my reading time. There was actually a day last week when I had to spend 6 hours painting the deck outside. It was a lovely start to the reading week, but I think that the difficulty of the books that I had picked did bring me down a little throughout the week, and I also think that I am coming down off of my reading high that I had when I got home from college. I don't necessarily think I'm going into a slump, at least fingers crossed, I hope not, but I do think that I came down off of the constant reading and the really quick reading that I was doing right when I got home from college. And I just slowed down last week, but I am very proud of myself that I managed to read the things that I did manage to read, and that I got those things off of my TBR shelf. Every little dent is a little dent that counts. I hope that you guys had a lovely TBR takedown if you participated, or a lovely reading week, or just a lovely week in any case if you didn't read a lot last week or if you didn't participate in TBR Takedown. I hope you had a lovely time anyway, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!